Okay. Well, we are going to have an amazing program today. The guest that Shmuel has brought in is, he was telling me a little bit about his experience. So I think we're going to have lots of questions. So I would ask that if you have questions, type them into the chat. And after he's done talking, we will do some Q&A. And I'll probably keep everybody muted while he's talking. And then at the end, we can kind of open up. And Shmuel, why don't you give us an introduction and tell us who you brought on board today?
Great, great, great. Shalom, everybody. Great to see all of you. I had a very busy day today. I went to Gush Etzion. I came from Jerusalem. So all these beautiful places sends their regards and waiting for your visit. Um, Beautiful, strong week in Israel between the Holocaust Memorial Day and the impossible day of Memorial Day for the Soldier, Independence Day. All comes and strikes us in a very, very dramatic time. Today, Rafah operation started, yes, no. And in the midst of that, we also see so much madness in the US right now within the campuses. So I thought that I was waiting for it for a long time to happen. And I think it's a big privilege for us to host today Dr. Kobby Barda. I actually know Kobby from the Haifa University, where I um, worked on my master's degree. And Kobby there started his master in American Jewry. He continued for a PhD, and he's going to share about the topic soon. He is today is the spokesman of the city of Netanya. He's a researcher in many places, and he's going to talk about it as well. Married with 3 children, and just an excellent, knowledgeable guy, especially in the politics of the U.S. and much more. So, Kobby, you can join us, and we will start. Say shalom to Kobby.
Shalom to you all.
Can I call you Kobby, or I need to say Dr. Kobby every time?
No, no, no. You have to call me Kobby because we're friends, you know? So,
Thank you. Thank you for the privilege. Kobby, I need to tell you, actually, everybody here needs to listen as well. A week ago, my wife got a PhD as well. And I stopped
Mazal
calling
tov.
her Michal. I'm calling her Dr. Michal at home. So, so it's great to have you here. Kobby, let's start. We have many questions and many topics. Can you start maybe the connection you have to the Christian evangelical movement? We are here sitting with Christian friends of Israeli communities, Christian people from all over the world. What's your connection, Kobby?
So, I'll start briefly by telling that I'm no longer a spokesperson. There is a connection to that story why I'm not spokesperson. Uh, Somewhere in the year 2015, 16, I've come to the conclusion that journalism has no future. And since I was at the beginning of my 40s, and I still have a prime of 20 something years in the workforce, I understood that I need to do something in order to, kind of prevail my professional work. And I was thinking, what is the only job that still acknowledge white hair or lack of hair, if you want? And my only conclusion was a professor in the university. So once I understood that this is it, I said, okay, now I can go and do what I wanted to do all of my life, and that's American politics. Interestingly enough, there is no place in Israel in which you can study American politics, shamefully enough. So since I have no door to enter, I needed to find a window. And the window that I found was the Ruderman Program for American Jewry. There I started by writing my MA about the creation of AIPAC. C. Cannon, the first CEO, the enabler of AIPAC, and basically what my research field is something rather kind of unique because it's an connection of many, many areas. It is first of understanding of grassroots. How does it work? So you need to know discipline of sociology, political science. Since I am looking about the Israeli-U.S. relations, so you combine in also international affairs, and there's also the element of management and since it's based on Jewish or Christianity, it's religion. And so, and since my PhD, in which in one moment we will get there, talks about evangelical, the televangelist, so it's also communication and mass media. So it's rather kind of complex, and it takes someone who needs to look 360 degree on the whole subject. So once I graduated the MA, I knew for sure that now when I have my, I can say most of the time, the left hand, if you may, of grassroots impact Congress via AIPAC, which the years that I examined was relevantly almost only Jewish. There was few Christian alliance back in the 50s and the 60s, but they were a minority. I understood that in order that I'll be able to say that, okay, now I can talk about how do you create impact, how you create grassroots movement, I need to take the right hand, and the right hand would be the evangelical movement. And so with my two professors, one of them is from American political history, and the other mentor is from foreign affairs, we decided that we will be focusing on one person, one issue, rather than on the movement as a movement. And so I decided to focus on late Jerry Falwell, how he created through his college, that college now Liberty University, an awesome grassroots movement impact by church planting, and the massive impact that it puts starting from the late 80s up to this day. And so my PhD was about try to understand a phenomena in which no one ever examined that before. And a very funny story that I have to say or to tell about that is that I had the privilege and the honor to sit down to a scheduled half an hour that was more than 2 hours that he gave me, Dr. Elmer Towns, which was the co-creator of the university. He was the academic anchor, whereas Jerry Falwell was politician, was a communication, was a PR person, was a philanthropist, blah, 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 all of that. He was the academic angle. So I had the pleasure to sit with him for more than 2 hours. And he's the godfather, if you may, of church planting, how to go out to the field and create that church planting. And so at the very end of that 2 hours, he's kind of telling me that he's tired, is 88 years old, and he wants to go, it was his late afternoon sleep. And I told him, just one last question before I go, if you may. He said, yes, of course. So I told him, listen, do you know anyone else other than me? Because remember, just in Liberty U, there's hundreds of people who finish every year. There's 130,000 students. That's the largest Christian university in America. Do you know anyone other than me who try to write the legacy of your school, legacy of the born-again Christian phenomena started this 70 all this day, and through the idea of church planting? So he was thinking, and then he said, no one else did that before you. So I told him, okay, now you have to tell me, how can you explain that I'm a Jewish guy from a relatively small university is the first man who connecting the dots, because I interview hundreds of pastors, getting data that eventually was, my unique reveal about the expansion of the movement throughout the United States. Do you have any explanation to that? So he took a zip of air and said, you were chosen by God. I said, okay, if the last one who tried to avoid Jonah finished in a whale, so I humbly accepted. If that's my mission, let me carry that with pride and honor. So I found myself diving into a field that I am literally pioneering it. There is no one else before that in any Israeli university who worked about the Christian Zionism or the evangelical, born again, whatever you want to call it, movement. And then I got a call from the one who was eventually Minister of Tourism the day he was elected. I knew him because he was a member in the city council of Netanya. His name is Yoel Rasposov, and he called me and told me, "Listen, I know you do something about those evangelical something. I think there's a lot of tourists. What do you say that you will be coming to serve under me as Deputy General Director of Ministry of Tourism and lay the foundation to work with that crowd or that segment?" And I think that I was the first ever appointee by a minister due to his knowledge in evangelical community. So that's on top of it. That was another kind of unique story to tell. Then I joined into the Haifa Laboratory for Religious Studies, in which I'm going to do there my postdoc. And it is my mission and it's my dream. I've been going through with the president of the university, who gave me a green light, and I've been trying to raise some funds for that, because my dream is to come up with the first ever North American Christianity think tank outside of the United States. So we're working on it, and I'm into it. And also trying to develop an MA for Christian Zionism program, and that's my passion about that. So I hope that can cover up me and my Christianity story, if you may.
I can say you are well connected. You proved me wrong. You're all in. You have a lot of knowledge, and I actually want to talk about specific the Christian and the movement all the way at the end of the conversation, because right now, all the people here on this Zoom, they have one thing in their mind. They're concerned, including me, including you, about what happens right now in the South, in Gaza, the war, what's going to come from the North, what we had a couple of weeks ago with Iran. There's so many things that involving this war. And I want to go very specific. I don't want to have now the security briefing from you. I want to ask a question about a person that we see is really strongly involved, and yet you don't understand where he's coming from. He started with a big hug for Israel, a lot of support and tears in his eyes, to a point today that we feel that he's pressuring Israel into a very minor solution that's based on his agenda. Of course, I'm talking about the President Joe Biden. Please explain to us, where is he coming from? What goes through his mind, probably his advisor's mind, and to see the beginning of, the supporter of Israel, the best friend of Israel, to the point right now that you really question yourself, what's happening there? What does he want from us, and why the pressure? Doesn't he understand what we're going through? Please.
So, okay, let me start by generalize that Biden say that he's a Zionist who is not a Jew. So I think that in his heart is in a good place regarding Israel, but he also a politician. And Shmuel, because you read Hebrew and you follow after things that I write in Twitter. And I've been talking in the last, I think, 4 or 5 months about the challenges, put it this way, that he has with the base of the Democratic Party. And I put especially spotlight on the Z generation. Now, the Z generation grew in the last 6 to 10 years in the social media era. Furthermore, last 6 years are the 6 years of the Communist Party TikTok tool for influence that many researchers identified the algorithm that is being held by the Communist Party in order to destabilize America from in itself. So you have a kid, 12 years old, that download the app of TikTok, which, by the way, has absolutely nothing related to money. What does it mean? The political party, the Communist Political Party of China, do not care about profits. They're not Facebook, okay? They have a goal that they want to score, and therefore they are willing to put everything in their power in order to destabilize America. They do that in one hand is through TikTok, okay? And I urge people to go online to try to three-dimension war affair of the Chinese from 2003, that talking about the cognitive war, about how does one can affect America from within in. That was way before the TikTok came. And then the other arm is pushing fentanyl and other drugs through Mexico, synthetics. And unfortunately, I'm sure that our friends here know what do I mean, mainly about downtown areas in inner cities and outside it. So you got a kid, 12 years old, taking his cellular phone, download this app, okay? And those 6 years, okay, he's brainwashed that if he wants to be cool, if he wants to be welcome, if he want to be nice, okay, he needs to wear a keffiyeh. He needs to go with watermelon. Watermelon is it was robbed as the symbolize of the Palestinians because he carried the same colors of their flag. Okay, so that's why if you see handle in Twitter or anywhere that have a little watermelon, spot this guy is a pro-Palestinian or pro-Hamas. Okay, so those 6 years tunnel are tunneling this youngster, okay, into hating Israel and hating America, okay, hating himself basically. That's the whole idea. Your grandparent, okay, robbed the land from the red men, from Natives American, and brought the black men, Afro-American, to be slaves. Now you, in your generation, need to pay what your grandparents did this day. If you want redemption, go and tunnel all of it into Israel, because Israel is the last place on earth, so-called, that is an apartheid regime, and where white oppressions, and they calling for a person such as me white. My late father came from Libya. There is nothing white in me, as you can see. I'm more brown than a common Palestinian is. But for their story, I'm a white, right? And I'm robbing the lands of the indigenous, the brown Palestinians. So that's the narrative those kids are getting, okay? And then from the age of 18 to 21, that's where the big dollar kicks in of the Muslim Brotherhood. And I urge you to go and read the verdict in Houston, Texas, federal court, 2008, United States, against the Holy Land Foundation, when 5 of the people who write a manifest to Islamize America within 100 years, okay, wrote it in 1999, was sentenced together, combined, to 165 years in jail. So we look at a big money pushed from Qatar. We're talking about $1 billion. The education secretary of Trump was looking at the numbers, 2014, 2019, $20 billion donated by foreign countries. Now, when Qatar kicks in money, it's not like if someone else kick money and ask it to be named after his father or grandmother or whatever. If they kick in the money, they want to have the syllabus. They want to have to see the educational program of the kids. They want to have their own stuff there. Okay, they pointing who they want to do. Okay, and that is creating a toxic environment. Now, that was a long storytelling because I already joined it with your other question about the campuses. And now I want to go into Biden and why Biden is so much afraid about that. Okay, so here's the thing. 2022, everybody talked about the Red Tsunami. Remember that, Shmuel? It was all set and done. The great Red Tsunami is going to wash the country, right? It's going to wipe the Democrats. Mind you, in some of the places in California, you would pay for 1 gallon $8.50. That was outrageous numbers. If you want, we can talk later about why he's rushing into the MBS deal with Saudi. But back at that day, that was the numbers. Now, why he did not lost? Because all the places where there are students, the college town, I'm talking about Athens, Georgia, for instance. I'm talking about Madison, Wisconsin. I'm talking about Ann Arbor, Michigan. Those kids went out by the numbers to vote. So as younger as you are, most likely that you vote for Democrats, right? So Joe Biden understands. Put aside the Muslim vote. The Muslim vote is nothing. For now, it's less than 3.5 million people in the United States. They're getting a lot of PR, and I don't think it's the main reason why Biden might lose the election. The main reason why he might lose the election is because that 3 days before election, you would have TikTok pushing in one hand, and the students, the students organization of the Palestinian pushing together hashtag Don't Vote Biden. Now, we have 6 states, maybe even 7 if you including in Minnesota, which just recently added to the general number of states that might be moving from side to side. Okay, that last cycle was in Georgia. It was 1,200. That was the number. And think of people that decide not to go. That might kill it. But as long it was kind of abstract, as long it was just like a general message, as long as nobody really understands what it is, only freaks like me could write about that. But the general public did not understand, neither not necessarily the stuff around Biden, but those Palestinian students, okay, SJP, that's the number, Student Justice for Palestine. We can talk about it later. There are more than 200 predators. I'm calling those fraternities SJP predators because their only job, their only goal is not to take care of the Palestinians. There is no Palestinian students in the campus. Give me a break. The only reason why they're there, okay, is to become a predator, is to hunt what I'm calling the purple hair and the COVID-19 mask kids that got into campus confused, don't know nothing about themselves, don't know their legacy. They hate themselves because that's what TikTok push into their throat in 6 years term, that they're six when they're 12 years of old, yes, all the way down to 18. And that is why, just like in the movie The Wave, in which I highly recommend if someone didn't see that, okay? It's based on a true story from 1967 of a teacher for history who created a mini Nazi movement from its own class, demonstrate how easy it is to become. So we're actually getting the wave all over again. And they're very sophisticated. And those 200 cells of SJP started the uncommitted campaign. The uncommitted campaign says as follows. You appear to the ballot box and you check uncommitted. Once you check uncommitted, it is countable for the numbers of people who attended this ballot box. In all of the places where they started the uncommitted, started February 28 in Michigan, the numbers of uncommitted were by the tens of thousands. Now, think yourself as Biden, sitting in the Oval Office, getting the report that 32,000 people voted from Ann Arbor, Michigan, uncommitted. It's what I'm calling in soccer the yellow card. It is, we're telling you now, we came here to tell you that if you don't stop your policy, we will not show up in the ballot in November. And that will be your red card. So Biden is a politician, and he needs to find a way in order to try to submit to those kids. There's no other way for him if he wants to be re-elected. And eventually he wants to be the president of America. And because of a crazy thing in campus, he might lose the election. So he's trying, just like in a circus, trying to liaison himself, walking on a very thin line, not to drop himself. So basically, that is where we are, and this is why he acts the way he acts regarding the Gaza war.
Okay. I am surprised for two reasons. Number one, everything you're saying puts a lot of pressure on those young voters. I'm asking two questions and maybe another one. Doesn't he understand that he's on the process of going with the young generation, the Generation Z, as you call them? He's losing a lot of conservative voters that are in the Democrat side. For example, the Jewish voters, for example, the big donors of other places, or just people that say, you lost the plot with what America stands for. And, swiping to the right might be easier when there's somebody like Donald Trump. And I would love you to refer about him. I read your book, that you wrote a book about Trump many years ago.
The
And
first and only so far in Hebrew.
there you go. How does he come in place when he's from the other side saying what he's saying? And yet, sometimes we catch him. For example, I think about he's hearing genocide from the crowd and he says, they're not wrong. Show me how the story with Trump and losing a lot of people that say you lost the plot, Biden. And with the extent that still we see a deal this moment on the campuses, it doesn't get many voters or many supporters from the Palestinian side. How they shout from both sides, both of them shout against Biden. So how does it play for him in the end?
Okay, so I'll try to break all of your questions into kind of one answer, but we'll take you on the process. So first off, many people ask me, how those purple hair COVID-19 mask will be eventually the one who won't go to vote and will put in the White House Donald Trump again. Are they crazy? So let me tell you about that. They can't care less. They are the same. They're represent for them the same. So they don't care if this is Donald Trump or if this is Biden. They call him Genocide Joe, as you said. And back at the election of 2016, I was target on only one place in America. In one place in America that I was on the data, okay, was the county of Philadelphia. Why? The county of Philadelphia is the most blue county in America. It has 94% Democrats, okay? And usually about 82, 83% come to every in each election. I said that if it will drop, if she, Clinton, yes, Hillary, if she will drop under 75, somewhere to around 70, she will lose Pennsylvania. If she loses Pennsylvania, she lost the United States. I did not knew that Trump will win Wisconsin, Michigan. It was not on my payroll. The path for his victory was to beat Pennsylvania. And in 4 a.m. Israel time, when they stopped counting the numbers in Philadelphia, and the rate was 63%, I tweeted, congratulations, President Trump. I knew at that moment that he will be victorious. Now, and that is answering you to the question, because those Afro-American that are the prime number of that constituency were so upset of Hillary Clinton that they could not care less that Donald Trump become the president. So why people behave like that? You're asking me that, as a political profession, because they don't care. So they don't care, they don't mind, and they showed that they're very serious about it. Okay. Now let's shift into Trump. Why Trump is not collecting up the votes or doing that kind of nature regarding to that? There is something that is very disturbing to me in the last 2-3 weeks in the Republican Party. I will try to lay the ground as much as I can do as a scholar, okay? People can or not necessarily agree with me, but this is my projection, the vector that we're walking in, okay? So the base of the Republican Party combines two big chunks. One chunk is the evangelicals, and the other one are, let's put it widely in a name, we'll call it the MAGA movement. It used to be that it's almost the same, but now we start to see them falling apart, and that is due to Israel. And how do we see that? We see that in the last few weeks, that very, very famous anchors representing the MAGA movement, such as Candace Owens, such as Tucker Carlson, such as Alex Jones, okay, are going all in first against Israel under the excuse of not sending the money to Israel. And we see the Christian Zionism double on aiding the money to Israel. When the Iranian strike started at Saturday, it was a 9-hour period. I got many phones from member of Congress, from chief of staff. It was funny. It was like I was waiting to my desk, sort of speak, as 9 hours, and people are calling me to see that I'm still alive. But there was one thing that they told me, and it moved me a lot.
Kobby, I just want to emphasize the story of the 9 hours. Maybe it's not so clear because we heard the missiles were launched, the drones were launched, and they told us, okay, by the way, it's going to take a couple of hours, 6, 7, 8 hours.
Before
so the
impact.
Feeling was the end of the world is coming, but maybe let's go to sleep and see what's going to happen in a few hours.
Exactly, Shmuel. So I had those friends calling me, and they told me, listen, what used to be is not going to be this week. We are telling you that we are going to force Congress, mainly the Republican Party, to vote with the Ukrainian aid. Speaker Johnson, evangelical, born-again Christian, a big lover of Israel, 2 times pushed the package of Israel standalone deal, and it was stopped in Senate. And the sense of emergency, which was 100% true, by the way, okay, led the Christian Zionism community to push hard. I'm talking about CFOIC sending 250 community leaders at Monday to the Hill, sitting on members of Congress, telling them this got to be end this week. And we started to see the separation because we see Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? She's trying to out Speaker Johnson. So she gets to do that because he pushed the package to Israel. And you see more and more, sometimes even it goes into anti-Semitic. I saw that, for instance, with the priest from Bethlehem that was hosted by Tucker Carlson. We're looking at a pastor from Bethlehem that prays at October 8th, the massacre. And you see Tucker Carlson, which I used to like and love to listen to him in Fox. I would, every morning on my way to work, I would listen to the show just the night before. It was amazing for me. I could not believe the shift. So we see now on the right a separation that in one hand, I generalize it. It's not exactly, but just as to understand it, I call it the mega, okay, the nationalists, okay? They're pushing against Israel. Alex Jones says that Israel commit crimes against humanity and genocide. He literally said that, right? And there's nothing different between him and Elinor Mal. She says the exact same thing about Israel, right? So you look at that, and it's the extreme left and the extreme right. They're not on a line; they're almost meet, right? It's like a horseshoe. they're thin close. So I think that this is why we see that Donald Trump is not all in, okay, in Israel like he used to be before, because he see what's happened within his party, and he sees that even though he said he went out loud and said, I want Speaker Johnson to carry on his job. He's been doing a terrific job. I want it to be next cycle, etc., etc. But I have a sense that within the Republican Party, we might see what started 5, 6, 7 years ago in the Democrat Party. They have the progressive movement versus the liberal, which is most of the Jews of America. I don't know many Jews. There are Jews progressive, but most of them liberals, right? They, as you said, they donated to Hillary Clinton campaign. 50% they donated to her out of her campaign. And on the right-hand side, we see the Christian Zionism willing to fight within the party, on the soul of the party, against the MAGA movement. So we here, Israel, are in a position where it is no longer party lines. It will be defined pro against Israel. And some of in the bucket will be the Jews from the Democrat side and the Christian Zionism from the red side, what used to be, if you may, if we want to call it about Israel. And on the other side will be the progressive and the MAGA movement. And this is something that will reshape America in many ways. A political landscape, not only in Israel, there will be other topics that will divide a different land. And I believe that in 2028, we'll see something else in the American politics. But now on this campaign, 2024, you see Donald Trump trying to hold that it will not collapse.
I think that where it strikes me, the strongest thing was there was a conversation about it for 2 weeks, I think, and then it fell. That there was an idea that the next aid by the U.S., one of the units in Israel is not going to receive funding because of problems.
Yes.
Right. Never mind the unit, but the fact that they wanted to differentiate one unit and say they were wrong, they committed things that are illegal. And what you always tend to see or to look for is like voices of support and people that say we're with you or without you. At this time, the general notion is there's a lot of criticism. But what really takes the most out of me personally is the fact that we see like never before. I will take Chuck Schumer as the example. Somebody that openly says, Israel, you have a problem, and your problem is not Hamas, you're a prime minister. I said there's the people of Israel and there's their government, and their government is not good, and their prime minister is not okay. And they're trying, and I'm sure, behind the scenes, you have many stories of how the American politics are, making a soup inside Israel's politics. But what we see now is an on-the-call desire to change, to swipe, to move and manipulate the politics in Israel to our face, Kobby. To say to the people of Israel, you see everything that happens now, it's because of your lousy prime minister. Where do they think it can go? How do we should feel about it? And what's going to be at the next month with the next prime minister, the next president? Are going to be added to the roster of the 51st state? Like, what do they want?
So I will tell you something about your question. First of all, let me start with the anecdote with Chuck Schumer, that I am deeply, deeply disappointed from him. Because I was back in 2018 in AIPAC when Chuck Schumer said, I am the Shomer of Israel, the guardian of Israel, right? And there is a fine congressman called James from Michigan, Afro-American, a man of faith, that promoted through the House of Representatives a bill that demands that every nickel from foreign entity will have to be registered. Whereas now It's only from $250,000, and the Qatarian are basically buying U.S. higher education and think tanks. Chuck Schumer is holding that, and we have only 2.5 weeks before Washington goes back to their constituency to vote. I'm very much afraid that this bill will not move, and it is a very important one. So I'm deeply disappointed from Chuck Schumer. I'm deeply disappointed that he didn't show up with Speaker Johnson outside of Columbia. Columbia is in New York. He represents New York. Where was your voice? His voice was just a few days after that. For 1 minute and 20 seconds, I counted in the 4 minutes that he allowed to speak, and the name Israel was not part of it. And he said, "Oh, the students, they're not. It's not a slap on the wrist. They need to get something." What are you talking about? We're looking at a terror organization. You're talking about slapping in your wrist? What are you talking about? But after being so criticized about Chuck Schumer, I can try now to sit on the chair of analytic or somebody who's trying to say that why he behaved the way he behaved. He is trying. We have a phrase in Hebrew, you know, that to eat the cake and leave it full, right? He's trying to do everything that he can, but not pushing the boundaries. So if his constituency in New York demanding from him, they do bird dogging on him every morning. They run after him. They telling him that they will vote him out. They'll take him out of his position as the Senate leader. And he needs, in one hand, to remain, faith to his belief, to his surrounding, to what he grew in his 70-something years in one hand. But in the other hand, he needs to please the mob. Then he found a way to designate, Netanyahu from the Israeli people. So it's been very easy for him. And if I may say, Netanyahu picked a very extreme right government with some buffoon member of Knesset that are joking on Biden in a bizarre and unnice way. And they're giving the playground to push that narrative that Netanyahu is bad because of the people who are surrounding him. Okay, and they keep their allegiance of alliance to the people of Israel. So this government will go. Someone else will able to refacilitate their relations. So that is another point in which they're trying to step on the pitch and go on the lines and not to cross the line in a sense. So and just one more thing about that. Just before I went on the Zoom, two things. One, President Biden came up with a very hard speech against the anti-Semitic in campuses. And he said there are people who forget what happened just not 75 years ago, but 7.5 months ago, that Jewish people was slaughtered, blah, 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 all of that, in one hand. And in the other hand, you get to read that the American administration decided to hold guidance to bomb. And you see how he's trying to go between the lines. In one way, he do this and to satisfy the center, the liberal, and in the other hand is to satisfy the extreme, the youngster, the Z generation, and the progressive. He's got a very hard job in this aspect, and he's trying to jungle.
Okay, I need to refer to the answer you gave. I think it's whatever decision the Israel democracy is doing, whatever buffoons we vote, they are our buffoons. And I think that every democracy has the right to make the decisions. I'm not going to go into the amount of ridiculism and how much they laughed about the president that was just voted 5 years ago and might be in a couple of months re-voted again. We need to respect democracies. I didn't like what they did, but I hear your answer. And I want to go to the last question from my side and then open for the floors. Of course, I have many questions and we need to
You can sit on a
expand
beer,
this.
Shmuel. We're close. It's not like our friends in Texas and
There you go. So my question is maybe a prediction. So I know, as you said, I follow you on social media, and you love to share geopolitical analyst. I don't remember his name. What's his name?
Peter Zion.
Right. So this is a guy that, looks at the wider perspective of things, and he's trying to show how big powers control everything we see. We see something small. You need to understand that behind it, there's a lot of reflection that comes from different needs and different aspects and pressures from countries. So if you would like, I want to ask you this question that goes into two parts. And maybe it's a prediction. It's like looking at the future. Be a prophet for a couple of minutes, Kobby. Number one, from your MA, Google will ask, is America still a safe place for Jewish people? That's the number one serious question here. And maybe not connected, but I think it is connected in a way. In the grand scheme of things, between what we see in the US, Russia, Iran, China, Taiwan, and Iran, the pressures that America is going to face in the near future, and the game that was played many years ago already, and Trump, by the way, pointed out many times of where it's going to go, these pressures, these powerhouses going against one another, how do you think it's all going to play? I know it's a prediction, it's a prophecy, but please.
Well, first about Jews in America. As a whole, the Jewish community has been very privileged since almost the day of its arrival to America. It was George Washington who sent this very famous letter to the Jewish community in Newport, and he said that Jews in America will be welcome. Since that day, I would say almost till the last few years, we don't record it in the history massacre. Yes, there was anti-Semitic. Yes, there were camps of Jews going to universities. Yes, there was a problem to go into country club. Yes, there was problem to get into professional guilds at the beginning of the 20th century. This is, by the way, why Hollywood is created. Hollywood created because that was a new industry, and Jews was pushed out, and they went to develop a new industry that was not there, and become so well known and embedded within that industry. It was just like, by the way, in banking in Europe. Why Jews are affiliated with banking? Because they were the only one who could back at the Catholic Church that could lend money. So this is things that the Jewish people were pushed into it, but they've been able to merit and to perform. But in the last few years, we see a few rallies of massacres. We know the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh. We know the Chabad synagogue next to San Diego. We know in New Jersey. So things started to get very tricky. But still, it was sometimes here, sometimes there. I remember that we were with colleagues from Brandeis University. I think that you were on the same gathering that we had with that merit class, right? They are the future Jewish leaders of America in MA, because they learned about
leadership program for whatever
for Jewish in Brandeis. And one of the students there, I told her, Israel eventually it's important, is a safe haven for you if something, God forbid, will happen to Jews in America. Then she looked at me and told me, like, in a straight face, she told me, we were here in America 250 years. Israel existed only 75 years. Why do you believe at all that in any sense, the Jews of America will be needing Israel. So that was her, state of mind of a Jew living in America without fear, without interfering, without anything else. But those last 7 months have raised a lot of doubts about the coexistence of Jews in America in many, many ways, because it started in campus and then it went on to other places. And I get to have a lot of my friends that are telling me that there are kids, asking them to go back home because they are in an environment in which they are rejected. And we as Israelis, for instance, I am a member in the International Relations Researchers Association, and the Israeli researchers ban was voted to out us, out of this guild. So the problem of Jews in America, that they're feeling there's kind of earthquake, if you may, in the United States that is shaking their abilities. Now, how it will play along, I'm not quite sure. I do not know that. I'm not a prophet, if you wanted to label me that. But the vector seems to be very problematic. And there's a lot of people who feel unsafe in America in many ways. So I don't judge them, and I don't know if it will be proved. But this is some of my dearest friends and colleagues are telling me. So this is in one hand. The other hand is kind of looking about the global structure. So here I got some good news and bad news. The good news is that United States will keep dominate the world. United States have been started from President Trump, but it's go on the same method under Biden administration to pull out and to bring back to America the manufacturing. Okay, they are mainly focused on the chip industry. There are two huge factories. One of them will be ready this year in Arizona. The other one will be in 2026, and there's one in Idaho. So America is betting on the AI industry and reclaim back everything that it was there. The COVID-19 started to cut the chains of moving the global shipment, and therefore many Americans started to create or to form factories back home. This is, by the way, why, according to some of the data that I saw, more than 8 million illegal immigrants flee to America under Biden administration. Now, if it was so bad in America, I don't see why people would risk their life going by foot from Nicaragua, in 15 days walking, and then might jeopardize their life in a lake or river trying to swim. So I think that the United States will keep dominate the world, and that is the good thing for us as Israelis and obviously for Americans. But the rest of the world is looking into fragmentations. The days in which everything was global are done. We are in the end of the times of the golden era in which we lived in the last 40, 50, 60 years that, by the way, invented by Americans. After the victory of 1944, the Bretton Woods summit presented to the world a whole new approach. The approach was, instead of confiscating your land, torturing your females, and slavering your men, they said, no, we will open our borders almost free of tax. We will guard your ships in the ocean on the taxpayer of the most generous nation on the face of history and earth, America. That's why they've been taking advantage against them. by other fragments of the world. This is why Donald Trump eventually was raised to power. But the understanding that you can get your cocoa from Congo, ship it to Belgium, do the production in Poland, send it through French, and it will be shipped to Pennsylvania. Yes, and all of those on the way, bits and bytes to the final product. That we're looking into the end of it. So, United States will be focusing only on the portfolio of the Mexican from the southern borders and the Canadian from the northern border, and will be able to prevail into this very dark time that the humanity is going to go through in the next few years. That we already started to see that Europe is a chaos, is a total chaos. Asia the same. What used to be peaceful times are no longer. There is active combats in hundreds of places as we speak, and we're in a bad. We're in depression in many ways of humanity, and we will have to reinvent ourselves from the beginning, because that thing of globalism obviously is less working.
Okay, this was ending in a bad note, Kobby. Thank you for that.
No, I'm waiting for the questions. Maybe we'll be able to.
So,
yeah.
Before, I didn't see anybody wrote a question. We have one person who raised his hand. I said in the beginning, we're going to finish with this question. I forgot to say. You said in the beginning about your knowledge and your connection to the Christian community. And I want to ask you this. From a political perspective, not from a belief system, and not from, you're in the academia and you need to be called and measured. Our people pray for Israel, support Israel, and they, regardless of what you would say today, they will still love Israel and care for Israel. That's their belief system. I'm
Genesis
saying from
12,
Genesis 12, right?
12:3, yes.
So I'm talking from the political perspective and the geopolitical perspective. Tell us what Christians need to do, should do, if they want to support Israel. It's a couple of notes from what you said from Kufi, from big movements, from your senator, from whatever. What do Christians who support Israel needs to do? What's their move to support Israel today?
So I think that the best thing to do is to urge their congressmen. I think that all of my research and everything that I saw, and reading memoirs of politicians and interview people, that is the most single effective tool that one have. If they can talk in their church and asking people to do just like what happened 3 weeks ago in the bill to secure Israel. I think that this is by far, other than praying, obviously, that this is something that they do without me telling them that this is something, because that's their nature, right? But if you ask me what is the most important support that Israel can get, is through urging their senators, is through urging their congressmen. And I have to tell you something. I'm very, very disturbed that in the last 20-something years, the Muslim Brotherhood, as I said, have been mobilizing youngsters to go to city halls. What in the hell related between the city of San Francisco, Raleigh, or whatever you want to name it, yes, to a ceasefire resolution in city council? What? I can't find any relations whatsoever. But as a fact, it happens. And why? Because a grassroots movement of mainly youngsters that are being pushed by the SJP, by the big money, because what happened is that the Muslim Brotherhood learned from AIPAC. They learn how to build the grassroots. They also built a lobby grassroots movement in Washington, advocacy related. And if we, as Israelis, will be able to get your support through your Congress, through your councilmen, through your mayor, through your governor, right? We're now, for instance, I have to tell you something. I have a very good friend of mine, which is a law professor in corporate. So she's been rallying one of the biggest law company in the United States, and they filed in West Virginia a lawsuit of $1.2 billion against SJP as a hub of Hamas in campuses. Now, if through legal system they will be able to break their neck, okay, or to drown the swan, if you want, then such infrastructure will be disabled. Okay, so if we get aid from good people of America, whether they're Jews or Christian Zionism or whatever, that they can push within their system anything related to that, I have to tell you, from my perspective, after reading thousands and thousands and thousands of mails, and I will only say this, is the one single most amazing story that I have from my work regarding Jerry Falwell. So Jerry Falwell was building this massive amount of people, okay, by the thousands, by the hundreds of the thousands. By the first time that his awesome power came into effect was back in the year 2002, when George Bush was the president and Ariel Sharon, God rest his soul, was the prime minister. And under Mukata, Israeli tank blockade siege Yasser Arafat. And then George Bush told Sharon that he need to move back the tanks. So Jerry Falwell said, talk to his people. And at the same day, 100,000 emails sent to the White House. 100,000 mails. That was the last time ever George Bush told Ariel Sharon to do something that was against the Ariel Sharon will. That was the last time, the first and the last time. So the power is awesome if you are able to mobilize people, grassroots, through your church, through your country club, through your co-workers, through your neighbors, through your friends. And now it's much easier. The only thing you need to do is like use your WhatsApp, use your Telegram, write your email, and make sure that the staffer got it. The staffer then goes to their congressman and says, this is something that is in a great interest of our constituency. And they're listening. This is something that I learned from my work, my scholar work. This is, other than money, obviously, but money should be like big time money that he will listen to you. Yeah, you need to be a pharma company, a tobacco company, a weapon company, whatever it is. That's not the scale. But as an individual, the best and cheap way, cheap meaning how much it costs. It's only of your time. Mobilizing people, most effective way in helping Israel.
I think that proves the hope and the importance of every individual and every person
Exactly.
that he has a word, he has a saying, and there's somebody who listens to him, and this someone wants to be reelected. And with all the political games we had in this conversation, I think this is where politics come into consideration. Even to us, the small people, we have a voice, and somebody needs to be elected in your name, and he's going to work for you, and he's going to showcase your word into others. So, Kobby, I want to thank you so much for coming. I'm going to hand over to Kim to have, if she has any questions or to give people the right to ask. Kobby, it was great. I've learned so much. Please continue to do the great job you do, and continue to have the spirit of a motivated speaker and not a boring academia doctor.
Trying.
Not boring
Thank
at
you, my
all.
friend. Thank you, my friend.
We have a one question, and then I know that we had a hand up as well, so we'll get to that one. But this one is from Debbie. Where are the talks at with the Saudi-Israeli normalizations, and do you think they will delay talks and wait until after U.S. elections to finalize?
So the one of the greatest Israel lover in U.S. Senate is pushing forward to get the 16 votes, at least 16. It might be eventually even more. It might be like 20 from the Republican side. Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham has been in the secrets of trying to push forward the deal, and actually, without Israel, there was no deal. Meaning, President Biden is trying to push for that deal with Saudi to keep your gas low. I believe that if it will go on AAA above $4, he will lose the election. Somewhere between $3.50 to $4 AAA average gasoline price. So he knows he doesn't want to play around with MBS. He got his lesson. It was a very bitter and bad lesson after he thought that he can, there's one thing you don't do with Arab Bedouin. You don't talk to his father and then go to public and tell, I talk with your father. This is something you're not do. This is not the conduct. And he humiliated him to ashes. And MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, served it very cold. 1 month before election, he stopped pumping that oil. And it skyrocketed to $8 a gallon in San Francisco, 8.5 I even saw. And you probably remember those stickers, I did that, of Biden. Yeah, right. So one of the most effective campaign I've ever seen. And he learned this lesson. So he's been trying to push into Saudi because he's got his wacko people on the left that not allow him to go on one of the most precious, amazing things that America found, and that's the fracking oil. So he decided that he's banning the option on the most important field in Alaska, which is under Federal Reserve, because he wants to align with AOC and her buddies, by the way, that taking in Manhattan a huge truck driving around. I like their double standards. I love their double standards. It's like remarkable, the double standard. Or his star, John Kerry, that fly in a private jet to Zurich. Yeah, so I just love that. I love how they set the example for themselves. But if we shift a moment again to the story, so he needs Mohammed bin Salman, very nice, very tender, keep his oil. He doesn't want any sheikhs anymore. And Mohammed bin Salman said, no problem, my friend. I want to get a treaty. Then he goes like, okay, upon the Constitution, I need 67 fingers. I only have 51 if crazy Barney will decide that he wants to vote eventually. So it means that I need at least 16 yes votes. How can I recruit Republicans? Then he came up with this brilliant idea. And for his credit, it's a brilliant idea. He said, how about I will bundle in Israel into the deal? And also, a very good friend of mine, which is now with me in Haifa, Johnny Moore, who was on the faith board of Donald Trump in the last cycle when he was the president. He's the one who brought Bahrain into the deal, into the Abraham Accords, and he's devoted reverend, and Israel is very important to him, and is the close friends of Mohammed bin Salman and others. So there's a lot of people from the evangelical community who are trying to push that deal. Now, I believe that this deal for Israel would change dramatically the landscape of strategy of Israel. Therefore, this is crucial to Israel to have eventually relations with Saudi. But the Iranian equally understand the meaning of that. And that is why Hamas have been launched in October 7th. Look, it was already set and done for the deal to come. It was needed to be signed up to January 30. And you would ask yourself, why January 30? I will tell you, because January 30 is the last day that you can submit to get the Nobel Prize. And the Nobel Prize was needed to be handed in October 7 this year, not last year, but October 7, just 1 month before the election. The greatest gift on earth that a president that under his leadership was the fallen in Afghanistan, was to come and say, listen, I've managed to carry this out. I've brought Saudi into the table, a great success. Now one can ask himself, okay, so why will Donald Trump approve it? I will open brackets and I say, until the last moment, I'm not 100% sure that he will approve it, closing the brackets. But Trump was led to the understanding that that is just an extension of the Abraham Accords, meaning that is his legacy, no matter what. So if Saudi is on, then it is into the credit of Donald Trump, not necessarily to Biden. And this is how they've been managed to bridge between those two persons in order to promote forward the deal. Iran, by the way, this is why Mohammed bin Salman went to Fox News and not to any other liberal outlet, because he wanted to talk to the conservative, to convince them. And I remind you that he said, every day we're getting closer to the treaty with Israel. That was his exact words that blew my mind when I heard that. I knew my friend Johnny Moore keep telling me all the time what's going on in the progress, but I could not believe it until I heard it in my own ears. But Iran, which are afraid from that, launched Hamas to cut the deal. And it managed to succeed because this deal is now postponed. And it was at least 2 or 3 months that nobody knew what will eventually happen. Now, the timeline is as follows. This timeline is Lindsey Graham, which is a highly respected politician in that regard. He said that the window of opportunity will be closed in June, because in June, Washington become like a cowboy town from the 19th century when everybody moved out of town, right? You see just like the rolling the desert, right? So nobody stays in town. No one will move this. The window is closing, and this is why it's all now get into that vector of that last 3 weeks. And if, God forbid, it's not going to happen this 3 weeks, I'm not quite sure that it will prevail for the next administration. Because if the next administration is the administration of Trump, I do not see, unfortunately, the generosity of Democrat senators voting for Mohammed bin Salman. The only way to unlock that 67 senators is a unique window created here that anybody can say, I am the victorious, it is on my payroll. Both Biden and Trump say that. And if Biden is to elect to that story, I don't know if he will have enough senators, because the senators now projectly would go to the Republicans. So I really pray and hope that within the landscape of those 3 weeks to come, a cut will deal. We will wake up in the morning and we'll understand that this is going to a vote. This is how it will play out. That's the play out. Okay. So the time frame is closing. And if we will have a peace treaty with Saudi, the whole area will change its face dramatically. From being in defense, we will be now in offense. The Iranian will feel a sage, okay? It will push out China, that China get in order to liaison between Iran and Saudi, and it will be a very important move to the world. Those next week or so is crucial. So I would say it's 50-50. I don't know, because there's a lot of things on stake. It's either to go to Rafah, okay, all in, and then there is no Riyadh, or a deal can strike. Myself, as Kobby, I hope that a deal will be, and then we will get our hostage back. And I believe that we'll be able to crash Hamas after that. But now this is the time to go. This is strategic. It's not tactic. And I pray to God that it will work.
Claudette, go ahead and what's your question?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for the enlightening and informative program today. And three things. One, I agree with you that what's going on the campus is part of what some powers would like to destabilize America. And I hope and pray no other larger organization join, because now they're trying to contain it on the campus. When I say larger, I mean like the unions and the far left or the far right, that would be terrible. But I think it would be even more terrible for our Jewish people, because if they manage to destabilize America, then I don't think that we will be safe. The other thing is that you mentioned that the world was kind of global in trading, and you see that it's going to come to an end soon. And I kind of agree with you, because if we pay attention what's happening in the continent of Africa, they're moving away from dealing with the West.
Mm-hmm.
And they're forming their own little, union, and they're trying to keep all their resources into that region. And I think we are looking at what you just mentioned there. And the other point that you made, that we should write to our parliament people. I'm in Toronto, and we are going through here in Toronto a situation where the government was about to pass a bill on Schleter. And we flood them with so much, emails and all that, and these things are on hold now. So I think we need to act as citizens. We need to make that point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your voice is being heard many, many times in history. That I've been spending so much time to read about that in memoir of members of Congress, in interior emails, in pieces of newspapers. People don't understand their awesome power, especially if it is really up with others, with pendle with other people's. This is mighty force. It's not a light force; it's a huge force. And unfortunately, maybe it's not unfortunately, because most of you don't know that you can be a relatively small group and do what you want to do and impact Congress, right? Because if 300 million knew that it is so important, then it was harder to get that. Because here, for instance, if you would send to your congressman, you don't need more than 500 emails in one day, that he will freak out. He will understand that he passes the line. There's something. So sometimes it's hard to find 500 people that will be emailing to your congressman, but sometimes it's enough, because that's the congregation that rally up and send that to their congressman.
We're using WhatsApp here for our petitions.
Exactly. This is it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the African, we have to pay attention, because we're not paying attention. But most of the African continent is shifting away from dealing with the West.
Yes, the BRICS, of course. Yes, yes, it is. It's a big problem, obviously. Yes.
Maya, why don't you go ahead and ask your question? You have to unmute yourself.
Kobby, we don't see you.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the link as you talk. Somebody asked for the SJP, so I'm listening to you. I'm just trying to copy. Yeah. Now I find it, because somebody asked me for the SJP, and let me put it now. Yeah, I got the. Yes, please, Maya, go ahead.
Okay. So you divided the Republican or conservative vote into two. There is the evangelical and the MAGA, as you call them, and you noted a few key figures representative of the MAGA, and the fact that they have basically separated from Israel, or differentiating themselves from Israel by voting or speaking loudly against U.S. funding for Israel. Now, is their motivation solely financial, meaning they don't want U.S. money to go to Israel, or is it really the old anti-Semitism that's coming back up because now it is acceptable again to be an anti-Semite?
So I would say both. because some of the things related directly. For instance, Marjorie Taylor Greene posted a Facebook post in which she drew the southern border, and then she put like 3 circles. She says, it says there Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel. It says why the money goes to foreign nation and not us. That would be like related to your question in that aspect. But in other aspects, you get to see Alex Jones from InfoWars saying, bluntly, no, Israel just committed genocide. There's nothing related to foreign aid here. It's just he decided that Israel committed genocide, and he's a very well-known voice in the American right, and in many ways. It's kind of I used to listen to that only from the left side, never from the right side. That was the first time that I get to hear that from the right side. So I can try to understand people that against sending aid to foreign entities. Though, as I said, that America are the most generous nation ever created in humankind. There's no other nation as generous as American, as a fact, as a sole fact that paid not only money but pay with their life for values such as freedom and democracy and other things that today in the campus just unbelievable, because you see that they're students preaching for North Korea, Hezbollah, and Hamas, and he goes like and going after the founding fathers and disgrace their statues and putting Palestinian flags all over them, and something is working very bad in that sense. But if you look at the American history of from its creation, that's a very, very generous nation. So I can understand people that say we don't want to print more dollars. It's something that I can understand as a whole. Even though Israel would find itself very hard without the support of the United States, especially now. Maya, before that war that we had, there was a lot of talking of people said, what, maybe we should find other allies. They were talking about French, maybe they were talking about China. Some of the people. And I stood there and I told them, "What are you talking about? You don't understand nothing in geopolitics." But it was funny because some of the time when people are hosting me in their podcast or in television broadcast, sometimes they're trying to play the devil, try to tease me, and I'm getting angry very quickly about that. But now they stop do that because they understand that would not be playing the devil, it's playing the dumb. So now in Israel, nobody asks about the importance of America any longer, right? But some of the people that said, we don't want to be. Also, Shmuel said, "I don't want to be the 51 star." That's something that he said, right? So there's a segment of people in the Israeli society who would say, what? I don't need their money. It's don't send me your money, but don't then tell me what to do or not to do, right? So I can understand this segment in Israel, and I can understand this segment in America who says we don't want to ship money anymore. But the common knowledge, at least for mine, I was asked by a very prestigious think tank to write a memo that will be served to the next president of the United States, a sum up of interest of national security. So I was asked to write about the year 2028 is the year in which the next QME, that's the deal between the United States and Israel, that supply $38 billion for 10 years. So it's $3.8 billion a year. Will they carry on for another term? So I needed to put this paper of 1,000 words to explain the president. It will wrap up with other national security interest and will be delivered to the administration. They've done that in 2020, they've done that in 2016, and they're intending to do that in 2024. And I wrote that there to the president. I told him what is the importance of Americans to support Israel? What are the outcome? What is the leverage that they get from that aiding? Because I truly believe that there's a symbiotic between the big brother and the small brother. There's the big brother, which is not in the TV series, but the big brother that as a family is taking care of his younger brother and cherish him and help him and looking after him all of his life, because he's the bigger brother. I'm the bigger brother. I know what it means to be a bigger brother to my small brother, to help him out when he wanted to get a loan or something of that nature. So almost the same. I look at the relation between Israel and the United States as a relation of family. That's how I look at that. And both parties getting something out of it. I hope that we'll be able to prevail. That's my hope, put it this way.
Thank you, Kobby. We so appreciate you coming on. This has been probably the longest Zoom we've ever done, and I don't think any of us fell asleep. So no, it's way late for you. It's middle of the day for us, but you guys are probably ready for bed. But just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming, and hopefully you learned something, and this was enjoyable. So.
I just will say one last thing. If somebody wants, I write a lot of tweets in English as well, but also it's very easy. The X giving you on the platform the ability to get auto translation, which is fairly good. I got a lot of American followers, so you can do that by go on X. It's Kobby Barda, Kobby like Lobby. It's Kobby Barda, the handle. And you can check me out there and get to read what we already talked about and find some of references of things that they said here.
All right.
And thank you very much for hosting me. It was a great honor.
We appreciate you coming. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks everyone for coming.